Hello leather crafters. Today I'd like to share with you some ideas on making leather rings. It's kind of a fun thing to do with your leather craft, and I'll just get right into it and show you some things I've got going here and maybe give you some ideas. Let's get going. Here's a piece of vegetable tan leather. It's kind of a part I had left over from saddle making. It appears to be about 6 inches, 6 ounce leather. So what I'll do is take my pattern for my leather ring. I'll give you a close-up shot of some of my patterns in just a moment. I did a video on how what kind of a leathercraft hack for using different handles and blade combinations. You're welcome to watch that. You will see that you can cut out these leather rings fairly quickly. And later on, after you get your pattern worked out, you could possibly get a hand stamp, so you could die strike your pattern. Or actually a clicker die, possibly. This leather has been sitting a while in my scrap bin. When vegetable tan leather sets for a while, it gets kind of firm. For a ring, that's a good deal though. On some leathers, you will be able to edge. I have a #1 Berry King edger here, and I will edge the top and not the bottom. So within just a minute or two, I've got a ring cut out. And then the next thing is to figure out the size, punch a couple holes, and then put a rivet in the bottom. This is a beautiful side of leather that came from the Maverick Leather Company, and it has a really nice back on it. It's smooth, and that would make good rings also. I think I'll cut out a couple now. I actually straightened this hide off and cut some strips, but I'm going to get at find a firm portion, which would be right in this area. I'll cut out a couple rings right here. This would be the butt part of the hide. It's pretty firm in here, and it's really nice all over. It gets a little soft up in the belly. room for one more on that little piece right there. Okay, now I've got my leather ring that's ready to put a design on. Some ideas are you could put initials right in the middle, or maybe just a scroll design like here's one that I've tooled actually. From this point, dampen this top piece, either transfer your design or draw it directly onto the leather, and then cut it in with your swivel knife and do a little light backgrounding. That is pretty neat. And something even simpler is some wheat stalks or swivel knife cuts. Something you can do pretty quick and looks good. Flipped right out of my hand, didn't it? Anyway, now I will show you how to rivet this together and fasten it at the bottom. I actually need to get a ring sizer myself. I don't have one at this time, but over in my metalworking shop I have some round steel stock that would work good for sizing rings. So what I'll do is punch a number 2 hole in here. As you'll notice, I made my pattern a little longer on one end, so you can adjust that and cut off the excess. You can kind of fit it to a finger or figure out the right size for most people. And anyway, that's just a little idea right there. A couple different designs and a few different. There's the first one I made in 2019. Added a 1/2 inch there. It's a little slimmer here, not so wide. What you can do is sit down with poster board and come up with ideas and designs. That's what I've done. I took a few moments to hand draw some a pattern, a flower and leaf, a flower in the center and a leaf on each side, and then the letter C. I would like to show you how to cut these in to the leather, dampen the leather, and show you how it's done. I've got my tools set right there. I'll set my paper pattern aside right here. I've got this spray bottle. It came from Tandy. It sure is handy. And I'll dampen my leather. Black coat on the back, couple coats on the top. Let that set for just a moment. My leather is damp. Let it case for a few minutes. What I'll do is hold that piece of paper right there. Got this little CS Osborne awl that I've kind of smoothed it up. They're a little bit too sharp when they're brand new, but if you'll rework your tip there, that will work fine. So I just press on my pencil drawing there, and the damp leather will receive my pattern, and there's enough of an imprint there that I can cut that in. What would look nice on this also is a little thin border. I think there's enough room to do that. That would trim this little leather ring out real nicely. The best deal is keep your design pretty simple, and I think you'll be a lot happier with that. I'm going to set that one up there, and I'll show you how I cut this in. I like thin, narrow swivel knife blades pretty much for all my leather carvings, but especially on this small stuff like this. Okay, got my C initial cut in there. If you would like, you can bevel around. I've got a craft tool beveler right here, and I believe it's the B801 that would work fine for this. It's pretty narrow. Let's see, I'll put my weight right here and use a real light maul for your beveling. Just spend a few minutes cleaning up your beveling there. And you can determine whether you like it beveled or unbeveled. You can dye these letters like this with a dye pen or a leather dye in a tiny brush. Okay, I'm going to put that aside. I'll give it another look in a little bit. I've got an older awl here that I'm going to use to transfer my pattern with. It's got a little bit sharper point on it, and that will help me to see my design to cut it in. So here's my pattern. You can just sit down and draw some different designs and have your own unique design that you made yourself. So that's all I'll do right there. I think that got it. Yep. And then I'll come back and put the little cut marks in after I cut the main design in. I have a Craftools S632 that I put for my flower center. I a flower this small, it's good to just put like a cut mark down the center and maybe 2 little nicks on each side. Then on the leaf, a cut right down the center and about 5 little nicks or cut marks on each side. It's something you can experiment with. It just depends on your pattern. Got a B802 here that I'm going to bevel around this, and that'll give it a little bit of depth. You will want to just tap lightly and not hit it just super hard. It tends to bend the piece out of shape. It distorts everything on this thin leather like this. Okay, I think it's time now to put the rivet in one of these and see what one of them looks like finished. Got a number 2 CS Osborne hand punch here, and I've pretty much got this pinpointed to the size I want. This is something you'll need to experiment with. I've only built probably about a dozen of these little rings and just kind of custom fitted them, and once I punch this other hole, I can mark that on my pattern so I'd have a reference point. I've got some Jiffy rivets, 407S. I've had these for quite a while, but it looks like that's what I need for this. I also have some, it's got a solid brass and a 1/4 inch post there with a nice cap. The bottom doesn't have a cap, it's just kind of got a hole in it, but that's okay because it kind of lays low and won't rub the finger. Now here's a double cap that came from Tandy leather, and I'm afraid this particular one is too long for my project here, so I'm going to use the brass today. I need to check in and see if they have a shorter post there. It's got just a little bit of a ridge, and I'm going to trim off, just basically kind of bevel that sharp edge there. So we'll take the post portion there, stick it up through there like that. I've got this little anvil. I think you can find them on eBay, or possibly, I think I've seen them listed in the Weaver Leather catalog. got this tool right here. It's got a number on it, 8100. It's a doming tool. It's a craft tool. I think that's going to work just fine. Let's see, next, something I was wanting to tell you. Oh, here's the two that I just carved for you to show you how it's done. And see, one other thought. I'll think of it in a second. Oh, if you don't have an anvil, you might try something like that. This is like a tool. It's got a little flat spot. That might work as an anvil for you. Just something that's solid and steel. I don't see why that wouldn't work. But you can be creative and come up with how to rivet that. Kind of a neat little project. Pretty unique. People really get a kick out of these too. You can customize them and personalize them and put initials on them or custom make them, whatever. Anyway, it's been fun doing this. I'll give you a close-up shot of what I did here today, and I just wish you the best with your leathercraft and leathercraft projects. Thanks for watching.